Hi everybody, this is Alchemist 2, and I'm back again with another movie review. I just recently got a chance to see Mockingjay Part 2, and honestly, I can say it met all my expectations as far as the Hunger Games franchise goes. And my poor dad, he's just sitting there and he's completely lost the entire time, and he's looking at me and he says, I have no idea what's going on. And I felt so bad. I had to lean over and I had to explain everything since Mockingjay Part 1, because I couldn't just go back in time to the Hunger Games and just begin there, because that was the start. That would have been really awkward and other people would have been trying to shush me, but fortunately I'm very soft-spoken and I'm very polite, so when I try to explain something to somebody, I whisper it so they don't hear and I don't interrupt anything. But fortunately I explained everything to him, what had happened in Part 1 of Mockingjay, and he says, I understand it, but I guess you really need to have read the book for this to make sense. Yeah, actually you do. Plus, having seen Mockingjay Part 1 helps everything flow and segue so much easier into Part 2. That said, actually, if you remember, then you don't really have that much problem recalling what had already occurred. But anyway, to me, it followed the book word for word, and it's just like the thing that kind of irritates me, and I know this is probably going to get me some hate, but you know, I love franchises as much as the next person. I'm a fangirl. It's what I do, but I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's a bit expedient for Hollywood to make a Part 2 of a final film. They are only doing it for the cashola and the bankola, but granted, I read an article about it saying that maybe it will exceed box office output, what they had predicted, and it'll be intriguing to see if it does go beyond what they had predicted already. And I'm pretty sure it will, and I'm knowing, and I'm fairly certain that Star Wars: The Force Awakens is going to beat everything when it comes out on the 18th. But I am not going during opening week, because I am not suicidal. And anyway, that in itself said, I loved Mockingjay Part 2. I thought it was perfect. I really did. Just everything that was done, it followed everything verbatim, and it made sense to see Peeta's reactions and him being completely disoriented and not being himself, affected by the Tracker Jacker venom, which I thought was done exceedingly well. And of course, the ending made me very happy too. I can't really say that much else about the film in its entirety, other than I loved every minute of it. I just thought it was superb, and I gave it 2 thumbs up, 5 stars hands down. And the whole crux of the film that I find most intriguing and fascinating is just the conversation about politics. And it's very disturbing for all of this to be coming out right now, just with what we're seeing. And we as human beings, I think we need to be alert to that, and we have to take responsibility ourselves, especially as voters coming up this next year. And I'm very prayerful, and I'm hoping that as citizens we make the right decisions, because some of these problems, they cannot be solved by a higher authority. They have to be solved by ourselves. And I know that's just a very controversial thing to say, but I think the reason that things don't get sought after is because the populace just doesn't feel like they're equipped to handle such issues. And I myself, I do what I can, but work keeps me so busy that I can only do so much. But I help when I'm able. The only thing that I absolutely hate right now is the fact that I can't volunteer. And that's one thing that I really enjoy doing, because I know it did a world of good. I was giving a service to the less fortunate, and I did it because I love helping people. I enjoy that. It's what I really want to do, other than be a producer. I don't know how being a producer would help people, but maybe I could optimistically shed some light on how things could be if people tend to be more open-minded than not, and try to get along. And that's what the Hunger Games is about. It's about not coming to violence to solve a problem, and well, that's kind of an irony that I say that, but actually coming to an agreement, a consensus, so to say, and not really giving things away, but how certain aspects will always be there no matter what you do. It's the memory that keeps you from making the same mistake. It's just like history. There's an axiom. The axiom is those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it, and we've seen that time and time again. And actually, that can be calculated. Like Greg Braden did a calculation. He has an algorithm that he developed himself, and if you want to look it up, do so. It's really interesting. It makes you wonder how much control we actually do have. We do have control, and we can make a difference, and we can actually steer our future in such a way that it will not be the horror that so many people are predicting. Well, I don't think it will be. I just think that things are at such an we're already in our bubbling over period at this point. A tipping point is far beyond what this is, but movies such as this just will bring it to our awareness and to the forefront that we need to be alert as to such things that can become or occur. That's what's so unsettling, I think. But what is at the heart of the film's message is these things don't have to be this way. They can be changed. We have that capacity within ourselves as human beings, both good and evil attributes. It's just how we go about enacting them and making them come to be. And I didn't expect to go on a kind of philosophical rant here, but there's so much truth to it, and that's why I like this series so much, and same with Divergent, and I'm hoping to God that they don't do a part 1 of 2 of Allegiant. That would be just ludicrous, but I already know that it's going to happen. When will you learn, Hollywood? Get your hand out of the cookie jar and stop being greedy. Don't stuff yourself with people's money that could be used for something else that's useful. Anyway, that's my little critique and overall overview of Hollywood. Yeah, it's all about the money. That's why I like independent media, but anyway, it's just I don't know. It's just I'm more about small business than I am big corporations for that reason. But anyways, and yeah, it's kind of a paradox that I work for a big corporation. But anyways, the big corporation I work for actually does a lot of good for people that are in need. That's why I'm not that vocal against my company, but this movie is very didactic in the way that it goes about preaching. Well, I don't know if you could consider it preachy, but my dad, he didn't understand a certain aspect. I'm not going to say what that certain aspect is, but it's understandable to see why Katniss takes the action that she does. And of course, the populace takes care of the other seething evil that was right in front of them all along. The corruption, basically. It's very intriguing, and what I find even more interesting, as I was listening to NPR, and good news for us Hunger Games fans. I forget what, I think it's, what? Okay. And the intellectual property actually, it's under copyright by Fox, and I don't know if it was Universal Studios, amusement parks, or what amusement parks are actually looking to take that intellectual property and engineer or imagineer some rides, which I would love to see a Mockingjay roller coaster. Why am I talking like my parents? A roller coaster. I think that would be choice. It would just rock my socks. But I don't know. It's hard to say whether this. Well, they're talking about it right now, so it's in the process thereof. And the reason they're doing it is because of the very morals, values, and ethics I mentioned before, and not really focusing on the whole killing kids thing, because that's just nobody really condones such horrid, abysmal, terrible actions. It's just wrong. But it talks about the preciousness of life, and just what it really means, what humanity is, and how we can actually function as a whole within our own diversity rather than not. And it's just really quite uplifting, I think, in that. And I think that's what we should all learn from it as viewers. But it's just my opinion. I don't know. Other people might think it has a different message, and that message just might be even more valuable and pertinent than the one that I have discerned. I just think that if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, then you have to see how it ends, because I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised, just like I was. But if you're like my dad and you're forgetful, then I would probably recommend watching the first one just to refresh yourself as to what occurred. But it has a very appealing ending, I think, just out of context, and it's a very optimistic way to look at the future. And yeah, very enjoyable, very entertaining, very brutal, but still just glad that these things are not happening in the real world, and I pray they never do. It's a warning. It's just like I said before, and we can all avoid the consequences of that.